Beginning ODO podcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to episode 200. That's right, 200 of the Odd Dad Out podcast, the show where I don't know what the fuck I'm doing most of the time. I am your host, Adam Higgins, the Odd Dad Out. You can find me at oddadoutpodcast.com and at Odd Dad Out on all the social media places. Holy crap. 200 episodes. Damn. Oh, I gotta, hold on, I gotta like get the fanny fingers out, you know, those, you just like the, oh my God, I can't breathe fingers going, ah, holy shit. Episode 200, son of a bitch. This is like the most overdue episode that I could possibly imagine I've ever done. Two reasons. One, I missed last week because, spoilers, I fell asleep. But it's because, you know, not that you haven't heard that one before. But yeah, it's just been really busy lately, and kids and school stuff and schedules changing and workload and all this stuff. And I laid down with my wife and woke up at like 4 a.m. I went to help her, you know, lay down and tuck her in for bed, and then it was tomorrow. So yeah, that happens. But also because, you know, the world and, you know, the corona. This episode should have happened last year, really. If I had kept up my release schedule, like my weekly release schedule consistently through 2020, this episode would have been around mid-May last year rather than the start of April this year. So, you know, thanks, Corona. How have you been? Because I'm here talking about myself and my sleeping habits. Oh, it's been crazy. Because I've been sitting here, I'm trying to do this, and it's really one of those where I'm like, I've been nervous to sit down and record this because there's fucking episode 200. Holy shit, you know? And, you know, I'd reached out and said, hey, anybody, maybe I'll do like a Q&A thing. Back at 150, I was doing guests at the time. And so I had awesome podcast editor friend, Emily Prokop here. And that was awesome. And it was awesome back when, I gotta stop saying awesome. But you know, at the time I was doing guests, and I was like, I need a special guest for 150. And to think that was almost 2 years ago now. Really sad. I only did like maybe one guest in 2020. 2020 was just a mess. I mean, I didn't do anything for half of the year on the show. But yeah, and so I'm disappointed in myself for basically losing a year almost of the show. And like I said, I should have been doing this episode like mid-May. I even talked about it at the beginning of last year about how, you know, getting ready for episode 200, and holy shit, if I was like, oh, I'm on schedule. And then like, you know, a month out from it, I stopped, or like 2 months out, I stopped. And it didn't occur to me until I started looking at things a few weeks ago. And it was like, holy shit, episode 200 is coming up. And if you're listening, I asked for questions. Say, hey, thinking about doing like a Q&A thing, because I think that'd be a really cool thing, since I don't have time or energy or availability to have a special guest or anything like that. Because like right now, that's why I don't do guests, is because right now, especially with my wife working from home, I just don't have the time or the real ability to do guests. It's just tricky. It's tricky to schedule it because my recording space is her working space. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to record and work and do all this when my wife would literally be sitting, you know, inches behind me while she's trying to work or pretending to work or playing Animal Crossing or whatever she's doing back there. And so, yeah, I couldn't do it that way. But I did ask for some questions. And I did say, hey, I'm going to try and do a live stream thing because 200 and that's special. And again, like I just mentioned, timing and availability and scheduling and sleep and life and work-life balance and all those things really didn't make doing a live stream thing reasonable or feasible. And so, yeah, here we are. I'm recording at regular time, albeit a week late. And like I said, part of the whole, I've fucked up and I fell asleep last week. I did in place, and it's something where I couldn't just drop it in the feed. But if, again, you follow me on the socials, social medias and those places, on those websites where you talk to people you don't really know in real life, those places. I did actually drop an actual video, holy shit, on my YouTube channel, which I know I really don't ever mention that there's a YouTube channel for this show, because it's primarily just made of the episodes of the show in still images. I don't really do video for the show because me sitting here talking with a big pop filter staring at my computer screen is kind of boring. And I talk a long time, and those don't really do great on YouTube, so I don't do them. I'm sure if I had a co-host or guest or something, it'd make for better video. But again, I don't record video even when I'm recording guests. So yeah, there's that. But something I did do, because, I talk about my garden so much, and I thought, hey, this would be a cool thing to do, is I recorded a gardening video. And I'm sitting here banging my desk. I recorded a video of me working in my garden and planting some cantaloupe and watermelon, or trying to. And I'll give you a quick spoiler for the video. About halfway through, right before I was supposed to start actually planting seeds, my phone, because it was 95 degrees out and I'm stupid in film and 2 or 3 in the afternoon, overheated. So my phone overheated and shut down while I was in the middle of making the video. So I had to kind of, do work around that. But I made a YouTube video, and it's actually me working in my garden. So if you care to check that out, I'm pretty sure I gotta update the link for it, but I'm pretty sure, hopefully by the end of this week, you should be able to go to odddadoutpodcast.com/YouTube, and it should take you to the YouTube page if you want to see that video. I didn't post the video itself on the website or put a post up for it. I really should. It's again one of those just like work-life balance time, trying to make time for things, and things like editing work and stuff that I do, in my home time. So yeah, that, but you should check it out. It was fun. It was a fun video to do. And I think I'm going to do more of those. And I think I might I'm considering scrapping, like everything else I have on my YouTube channel, because it's primarily made of just episodes with just a still image. And you just like, oh, here's a picture of the episode artwork and the audio. And it's kind of lame. And so I'm really considering maybe doing more with my YouTube channel. I don't know. I keep saying I'm going to do stuff and then I don't do stuff. And so I'm trying to do more stuff that I say I'm going to do. But, I realize I'm kind of going off about all this other stuff going on. And, stuff like I've talked about doing the podcast reviews, and I did a few of them and I fell off. And again, that's a lot of time and busy and commitment to doing the things. And what am I going to talk about? What am I going to review next? And I'm really bad about those sort of things, and really just need to find the time, find a thing to do and commit to it. But I do want to do more of those, and I do want to do more written reviews, and I need to do more complete show notes. And I've just been really bad about it lately. And just, again, lots of stuff going on and stuff that I need to refocus my attention onto doing this stuff. I just do. I think it'll give me something to do while my wife is working. I can sit here working on show stuff because, other than laundry and dishes and sweeping and mopping and gardening and taking care of the dogs and, making dinner and all that shit, I don't have much to do during the day. Wink. So all that aside, I mentioned a Q&A. And although I don't have the most massive audience out there, I do have some really awesome loyal listeners and awesome podcaster friends who are great at really showing up when I really need something. There are people out there who will show up and help out. And I have some friends and some listeners who are really good at coming up with questions that make me like, oh, what the fuck? So without any further whatever from me, let's get to the questions, huh? Okay. Ooh, this is going to be fun and a little unnerving. And I'll just say now, I have a bunch of questions that are from the same people. And it's just kind of hey, some people sent in multiple questions, and not a lot of people overall sent in questions. So congratulations to everybody who did. You'll all be getting a keychain as soon as I get off my ass and mail them. Let's start with, I think I'll jump around a little bit because I don't want to just run down the list from one person. But I'll start with the first question I got came from Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss. You can find her at iwbpodcast.com. Figure I'd just throw that in there for her. So, and it's actually one where I had to think about it, which says, which podcast suggestion has been the best surprise? And I will say, I don't get a lot of them. I really don't. As much as I sit here and pester you guys every week, give me your podcast suggestions, I don't get a lot of them, which forces me to have to go looking. But as I was in a conversation with her over, I forget what, one night, she actually did give me one, and it was actually as far as surprise recommendations, I have to take hers. And Kate actually recommended the Doomsday podcast, or specifically Doomsday, the world's most dangerous podcast. And I want to make sure I get this right, because when she said Doomsday, I looked up the Doomsday podcast. Well, the Doomsday podcast is a Dallas Cowboys news podcast. And it's like two just old radio guys who do a podcast about the Dallas Cowboys. So what she meant was actually Doomsday, history's most dangerous podcast. And if you do search this up, it's the episode, or not the episode, the artwork for it looks like a giant King Kong climbing flaming buildings and all this stuff and destructive sort of stuff. And it's a history podcast about like disasters, basically. It's about like a day or a circumstance or a big thing, like a volcano erupting or a giant freak flood or, a molasses tsunami, stuff like that. All these sort of things, just, very doomsday-y. And probably one of the best things about it is that, one, it's very tongue-in-cheek. And if you've ever listened to Myths and Legends, it kind of has a little bit of the little jabs and little jokes and little side comments. But also, there's always a little side segment within it where he'll teach you something about surviving a particular situation that was related to this. Like, if you ever find yourself in a stampede, I would say, then this is like where you're like, people are crammed in a natural disaster and you're trying to escape kind of thing. Like, the building's on fire and everybody's rushing in the same direction or whatever. Here's how to get out of that. Or whatever, breaking out of your car if you crash in a river or some shit. There's always a lesson of here's a piece of information you can use to survive the situation at hand. And so that's a cool thing that you can learn in that. So, yeah, so that's my first recommendation, or my biggest surprise. And it's my biggest surprise because I don't listen to history shows. I really don't. I don't listen to history podcasts. If you've been listening to me long enough, I predominantly listen to comedy, some paranormal, like supernaturally type weird shit. Granted, it's all weird shit. And generally, audio dramas that also fall in the comedy and weird sort of paranormally, supernaturally type shit. I have a type. Sorry. I like my escapism in my podcasts. And then 1,000,001 podcasts about podcasting. No surprises there. But let's see. Let's go to another one from Kate. She says, where's the weirdest place you've listened to a show? And that's simple. I'm boring. I don't. I almost exclusively listen while I'm at work. While I'm driving to work, driving home from work, and while I'm working, because I have the luxury of being able to wear headphones all night. So I can put away 8 to 10 hours of listening a night, which is why I listen to many shows. And I still have to listen at double speed to get through everything. But yeah, that's it. I'm boring. I listen at work. I don't listen at home. I don't listen when I'm mowing the yard because, sometimes you got to, even through lawnmower noise, you got to be able to hear the kids screaming in the house. So yeah. But let's take a break from Kate for a minute and we'll go down to Heather. Heather is the host of the now retired, I guess, maybe not retired, I don't know 100%, from Sunshine and Power Cuts and the recently launched Just Heather's and Not Just Heather's podcasts. She went from doing one show to being crazy and doing 2 shows with different formats. So here's hoping, and I'm looking forward to more from those shows. They just barely launched. They've just kind of had their intro episodes so far, but I'm looking forward to them because Heather's awesome. I love her to death. She is one of my best podcast friends ever. So really looking forward to seeing and hearing and everything more from her. But aside from all that, let's see. What's the biggest thing you've learned from episode 100 to 200? I told you my friends were going to make me think. And honestly, I picked up a lot of skills because honestly, I'll tell you, even at episode 100, I was still really raw. I look back at episode, like my skill set in my ability to talk and my ability to fill the conversation with myself, I guess. My ability to do this, I've just gotten better at talking. I've gotten better at trying to keep my story straight and try and stay kind of on topic if I need to. If I'm trying to, focus on gardening, I try and focus on the gardening. I try and remember to get back to what it was I started talking about. And at least for the year that I was doing guests and having a guest episode and talking to other people, I do enjoy doing that. I actually enjoy having guests. And so that's something I learned. I learned that for all of my being introverted and quiet and not liking people in the most general way, I do enjoy having conversations with people on here. And I learned how to do that. I learned how to do that and I learned how to edit a lot better. But it's probably just generally getting better at this. It's a lot of learning the skill of podcasting and talking better and reading better, because through that is when I was doing a lot more of the news stories and I'd have to read more, and being able to read convincingly so it doesn't sound like you're reading, or reading with intention so it sounds like you're reading but doesn't sound like you don't know how to read. At which point I'm going to sidebar here and just point out my absolute 100% biggest pet peeve as a podcaster who's super critical of podcasts because I've been doing this for 6 years, a podcast listener for 6 years, and a podcast editor. I absolutely cannot stand when somebody on a podcast is reading and they sound like they're reading. And the biggest giveaway is mispronunciation of common words, or words where you absolutely should have, given the context of your show, learned how to pronounce that, or just learn how to read and not sound like a robot. I have listened to too many podcasts where they start reading something, and it's 100,000% worse in the true crime genre. It's part of what I hate about true crime is they have to do a lot of reading because most of it's scripted. If you can't read a script or a news article or your notes without sounding like you're reading badly, stop it. Either learn how to read better or stop reading, because you suck. And I have podcasts I like that are friends of mine who do this. I'm not going to name any names, but I will say through Operation Switcheroo, a lot of shows that I listened to that were the switch around ones, drove me up the fucking wall because of people and names, celebrity names that were like mispronouncing. Like, really? You mispronounced? Like, I'm hearing somebody talk about something and obviously reading from a script that was like This is a common word. How did you mispronounce that? The only way you mispronounced this word is that you've read it, you're reading it for like the first time, but somewhere in your brain you should have clicked, oh, that's that word that I already know. That's how you spell that. It's like people who pronounce the B in debt. I had an ex-girlfriend who did that, drove me fucking nuts. So, and it's a hiccup, it's an issue I have with actors too. Just, I realize it's a big sidebar. Anytime I'm watching a TV show or a movie or something, and you ever see somebody whose name is mispronounced in TV or in a movie, and they use it as a gag, 9 times out of 10, this is after they've said their name. They were introduced by speaking their name, but the way that the name is mispronounced could only be mispronounced that way if you read it. And it's a big problem for me because it pulls me out. It's like, if you walk in and say, hi, my name's Steven, and everybody starts calling you Stefan, you have no clue that his name is spelled that way. So that's a thing for me. It's a reading thing. I have a problem with people reading badly when they're supposed to be reading a thing. Okay, enough. Sorry. End sidebar. And it had next to nothing to do with that other than it's a skill I have that annoys the ever-living shit out of me. And as a person who has aspirations for audiobook narration and voice acting, not being able to read cleanly just annoys the fuck out of me. Okay. Oh, remember I mentioned my friends have skills for coming up with good questions that make me have to think, and I don't know if I want to think. If your podcast was a flavor, what flavor ice cream would your podcast be? I don't know. I feel like it'd have to be something with like a coffee ice cream base. Maybe if you did like a Rocky Road, which for those of you who don't know, that's a chocolate ice cream with, I think it's almonds and marshmallows in it. And like, I think there's a fudge swirl in sometimes. But if it was like a Rocky Road type, but a coffee ice cream base with a hot fudge swirl and marshmallows, cause I don't know, cause marshmallows, and gotta have some nuts in there. And I guess I'll stick with peanuts because whoever decided putting almonds in ice cream was a sadist, because it's a bitch and a half to bite through those. So maybe like some crushed peanuts, or, you know, better, cookie dough. So we're going to go with coffee base, cookie dough, hot fudge swirl, marshmallows, because why the fuck not? Crunched up peanut butter cups, because I like peanut butter cups. And let's go with maraschino cherries, because I'm kind of fruity there. And it makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't really work well together. It's just a mishmash of bullshit. So kind of like this show. Plus coffee. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, so we'll have, coffee, hot fudge swirl, marshmallow fluff swirl. That's how we'll do the marshmallow. I've seen that in some good ice creams. But yeah, and then peanut butter cups, cookie dough, and maraschino cherries. That's it. That's the Odd Dad Out ice cream. Stamped, traded, copyrighted. Somebody make this shit. Go for it. I'll put my name on it. Go for it. I didn't think I was actually going to be able to pull that off. I really didn't when I first read that question. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Really, Heather? You're going to make me think like this? All right. So I'm jumping off of Heather. Heather's got a few more questions. I'm going to come back to her in a minute. But I do want to go down to not some directly friends. I'm going down to Coach Raven from the Strength Love Metal podcast, who, yes, I am aware, totally cheating. She's my sister. What's your dream vacation for your family and for you and Rihanna alone? So I'll tell you, my wife probably has a very different answer to this. I'm awful about vacations. I honestly don't know what I would do, because to a certain degree, I'm very I'm comfortable in the woods, and in like I love our camp trips where we just go up and we rent a cabin up somewhere at a lake, and we're planning on going. We're not going to a lake next. We're actually going to kind of up in the middle of the mountains. We're going up towards Sedona in the fall. But I really like that, just the getting away from it, nature and hiking type stuff. But I really don't know what like a dream vacation, because I don't necessarily aspire to go anywhere. I'm boring. I'm very much a homebody. And so I don't know personally. Like I said, I just don't aspire to go anywhere. I enjoy time in nature. But I also enjoy time sitting at my computer watching, working on podcasts, and I enjoy playing video games or just going to the movies. And so I have a hard time. I'm so indecisive about stuff. I don't think I could actually want to go on a vacation myself. But I do know that Rihanna wants to go to Wales. Granted, she wants to retire to Wales, like get a house there and move there. Supposed to give her a summer home in Washington State, which right now I would never do. Things shit be crazy in Washington, yo. But also, she wants to have she wants a castle in Wales. I don't know if we could just buy a castle in Wales. One, financially speaking. Two, I think you need to have like some sort of rights to own a castle there. I feel like you can't just, be some schmuck from Arizona and buy a castle in Wales. So there's that. But aside from, I think that's it, because I feel like, okay, if I have to say with the family, I'd have to just do, the stereotypical take the boys to Disney, because you kind of have to. I'm kind of, partial to Universal Studios myself. I'm less inclined to go to Disney. Disney is so fucking crazy and everybody's there, but granted, Universal Studios is right next door. But yeah, I guess if I were going to say a vacation for the whole family, I'd have to go with doing the Disney thing. And we have plans to do that down the line. A few years from now, when the boys are a little bit older, we're in a little bit better financial place, because, it costs, you got to, refinance your house to afford going to Disney. But that's probably it. So castle in Wales, take my wife to Ireland or Wales, because she'd love to do that. More for her than me. I don't particularly care to go anywhere. I'm boring. Sorry. But yeah, Disney for the boys. So let's jump back up let's do one more from Kate. How many days have you spent podcasting? Fuck if I know. 200 episodes, 90% of them were just a day. Well, okay, so it's 200 episodes, and I have to look this up because it's 200 episodes of the main show. And I do have to clarify that, because of the fact that I am fully aware I've done way more than 200 episodes, because for 2 or 3 years, I was doing National Podcast Post Month, and I don't count those episodes, but I did have regular episodes worked in there. So let's see. Officially, I have actually released 283 episodes on this feed. I had to just look it up just now. 283 episodes I have released on this podcast feed, which would make this one 284. That's a lot. So I've at least spent 284 days podcasting, but that doesn't count all of the interviews I did where it was record one day and edit and release and do all that other stuff another day. That doesn't count all of the days I've spent editing as a job, editing podcasts for other people. And that doesn't count all of the days spent doing Mom and Dad Cuss, which we had, 30 some odd episodes? Let me look. It's one of those. I'm still subscribed to this show, even though we stopped doing it years ago. Actually, I'm not. How about that? But Mom and Dad Cuss a Little had something like 30, 35 episodes, somewhere in there. So in the ballpark of 300, 350, maybe, God, with editing days, it's hard to say. I'll probably give it a year and a half worth of days. I don't even know. Probably I just round it up and let's call it, I've done a year. I give or take a year. That's a lot of days spent podcasting. Even just trying to, spitball that number. But yeah, that's a lot of fucking days. Holy shit. See, this is the thing that these questions are making me think of shit that I didn't think about. And that's what's crazy about it. All right, let's jump back to Heather. Let's see. What podcasting tools have helped you the most in the past year? I'm going to say, because Heather's another podcaster who really gets into the nitty gritty, and she likes listening to a lot of the same podcasts about podcasting and learning the industry stuff and getting really into that. That's why she asks. That's why she is curious about these type of things. Biggest one, probably the biggest thing that I've gotten, and I don't even know if I got it last year, or if it was the year before, but is actually the Isotope RX. Which version do I have? Because I know I upgraded. RX7. I upgraded. I got the base RX6 elements a few years ago, and they put the full version of RX7 on sale, like they do. Like every time they go to release their next version of the RX software. And if you don't know what RX is, it's an audio cleanup tool, audio cleanup and repair, and it's really good for background noise removal and things like that. All these things are made for music, and that's what, everybody makes stuff for music, and podcasters take it and do what we do with it. But this is designed for, it's like audio cleanup and repair, and for removing artifacts and removing bad noise and fixing your EQ and compression and oh, there's a dog barking in the back. I can cut that out. All this weird shit. RX is fucking magic. The shit that it can do. It really is. And so, yeah, the RX tools are probably the best tools that I have had. And I got really lucky because I think I upgraded for $130 when at the time the price for the full thing was $300. So yeah, it's easily the best tools I have, because it's got all the mouth declick and the de-reverb, so you don't hear how echoey this room is right now, because I'm in my office facing straight into a flat wall with no sound treatment anywhere. The softest thing around me is the carpet and the dog. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. Let's go with one more from Heather. Let's see. What do you want to achieve with the podcast in the next 100 episodes? I guess if I had to put a goal, and I'm if you followed me long enough, you realize I'm really bad with keeping goals about the show. And that's why I really hate making them and saying I want to achieve a thing that is a goal for the show and not just a personal goal. I'm going to write more, especially because I fail at that. But I would like to double the audience. I would. I'd really like to break triple digits. And I realize for most people, and realizing that I am 6 years in and 200 episodes in, and that the only time in this show's history that I cracked triple digits on an episode, I know for a fact that it was because of a bot. And I consistently, for about a month, had a bot that showed up in my stats that I was nope, 75% of my downloads all had the same title on them. It's it's a bot. I know it's a bot. I even raised an issue to tech support about it. It's hey, is this legit or is this just a bot? And they came back and yeah, it was a bot. And it's one of those, man, this looks great. I know it's a bunch of bullshit, but it looks great. But especially when you're like me and you miss a lot of weeks, and you have consistency issues, and you have this show is, I have to say, the show isn't for everybody, because the show is so me focused. I'm not teaching you anything most of the time. And it's just all about me and my personality and what are the shits in my brain. And those of you who are, enjoy listening to me, I greatly appreciate you. But this is definitely not a show with a wide audience. And I am hard pressed to think there are over 100 people who would want to listen to my bullshit. If you disagree, please share my bullshit with your friends who might be willing to listen to me and enjoy this. But I'm hard pressed to believe there are over 100 people who would willingly listen to me. So again, if you disagree, please share the show. That's the best thing you could do for me. Help me reach my goal for the year, or maybe it's granted in the next 100 episodes. That's 2 years, people. But of getting to that, it'd be great if my episode reach at least got to like where my episode number, if I passed 200, that'd be awesome. I'm not holding my breath for it. That's just, me being low self-esteem and all that jazz. But that's parts, my laziness and bad at marketing, and part, y'all's willingness to share the show with your friends. And again, if you know somebody who you think would enjoy it, great, go for it, share it. That's the best thing you could possibly do for the show. I don't care if you buy a shirt, ever. But if you share the show, that's awesome. That's the best thing you could possibly do for me and the show. So, next question. Let's jump away from Heather and go down to Superfan Tori. And I'm going to call Superfan Tori from here on out, because Superfan Tori is the only person for all the times that I've said, hey, you can text me your questions or your comments or your anything. Superfan Tori has texted me twice in response to me saying, hey, text me with your whatever. Tori has responded. So Superfan Tori is now Superfan Tori until somebody can upstage them. Okay? All right. So Superfan Tori asks, do you have any more recipes to share, like the mac and cheese recipe? And that's proof. That's proof of a diehard listener, because that was like 2 years ago during National Podcast Post Month, and I needed to fill an episode. And so I did how I make my sausage mac and cheese. That's a fucking diehard right there. I don't know of many people who could pull that shit out of their ass. And so it makes me consider, I've said before, that's something I wanted to do with the show originally, was doing, because it's part of the name. It was all of the shit that I'm domestic dad. I'm the one, I'm out in the garden. I'm doing the laundry. I'm cooking all the dinners. I'm doing all the shit. And I'm tapping my mic with my phone while I'm doing it. And I don't want to go back and re-record that because I was on a roll. But yeah, so I did my recipe for my scratch sausage mac and cheese, which I still love to make, but my wife hates because she just got so burnt out on it because I made it so often. But I've made some minor tweaks to it here and there, but it's more of just to smooth out the cheese sauce a little more. I saw a YouTube video from Adam Ragrusia, if you've ever seen him. Pretty cool. Does a lot of recipes, does a lot of food history and science type stuff. And he had a trick for making smoother mac and cheese by using American cheese slices as an emulsifier. So you just melt like 2 or 3, depending on how much you're making, 2 or 3 American cheese slices into it. And the emulsifiers in the American cheese slices, like, Kraft singles. And you just, those like 2 or 3 slices, and then add your, like, in my case, half pound of cheddar cheese. And it helps smooth the cheese sauce to keep it from getting grainy, and works really well. You just have to kind of balance it out because you don't want too much of that in there, because then you start getting the American cheesy tang. And I don't want the tanginess and the kind of acidity of the American cheese flavor overpowering my sharp cheddar. I want my sharp cheddar flavor. So yeah, if you're interested in that, I want to do some more, and I have to be careful because there are personal home recipes. Like I cannot under any circumstances give away our pumpkin pie, the actual recipe. I did do a here's me making pie. Here's the steps of me making pie on my Instagram a few years ago, but I did not give any amounts. I just said spices. I didn't say what exactly is in it. I didn't say how much of anything, but I went through the process because it was like, hey, we're making pie. Here's pie. So I think, yeah, I'd want to do that. That'd be interesting. I just have to figure out what I would do because I'm boring and lazy and my recipes aren't particularly, fabulous. It's just me making shit. Maybe I'd do pizza dough, but and it's one of those things. My recipes aren't my own originally necessarily. It's all shit that I've, pulled up on Pinterest. And my pizza dough is, according to the description, it's a Pizza Hut knockoff dough. My pizza dough tastes absolutely nothing like Pizza Hut. So I call bullshit, but it's, me making it. So who knows? Maybe I'll do that one. I could do my pizza. I could do some of that stuff. I'd almost want to make a video of me making pizza, which, that actually might be a cool video for me to do for the YouTube channel. If you have any ideas, throwing this out there, Superfan Tori or anybody else, if you have any ideas for something you'd like to see me do on my YouTube channel, besides just watching me talk because that's boring and I'm ugly, let me know. Hit me up. Again, all the places, social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at OddDadOut, email show@oddadoutpodcast.com, and text me 516-636-7631. Holy shit, I remembered it this time. Yeah, text me or leave a voicemail. Voicemails are cool. I'll play it if you want. It's totally cool. Let me know if there's stuff you want to see me do for my YouTube channel. If you want to see me make a fucking pizza, I could do that. Totally. I haven't made pizza in a while, so I'm totally down to do that and film it and let you guys see it and try not to make my kitchen a complete disaster, which it probably will look like because pizza is just messy. But yeah, I think I might do that. That sounds like fun. I think I want to do that now. Thanks for the idea. Thanks for making me think of the idea. All right, let's jump back up. I realize there's a couple more other people, but because Heather and Kate threw me so many questions, I have to keep bouncing back up. Let's see. We already did how many days? We already did that one. What color is your favorite podcast? This first forces me to pick. I can't choose a favorite podcast. I very frequently recommend Welcome to Night Vale as hey, you should listen to podcasts. Listen to Night Vale. But because of my overall indecisiveness of everything in the world, I tend to, this is what I'm listening to the most right now. This is the thing I'm most excited for and following the most right now. And the two that I'm most hung up on right now are Less is Morgue, which I need to do a review on, but I'm trying to avoid all the weird shit, but I don't think I'm going to be able to avoid weird shit right now. Less is Morgue, I'm really hung up on right now and listening to. And then the other is they just rebranded it and I keep having to go back and open up my list. Sorry. Keep having to check on the actual titles because, and like checking numbers, and the Lafrasian Chronicles and the current season is Arson. And, it was originally just titled Arson and they kind of rebranded it halfway through, which kind of works with what they're doing because calling it Arson, it's Arson with an E. Arson inside the story is the name of the king of the fairy folk. And so titling the show after what so far in the story has been a kind of minor character doesn't totally make sense. So, and it kind of seems like maybe the title was there before the story was totally fleshed out. But at this point in the story, the king is kind of inconsequential. So naming it after him is really not necessary. But the Lafrasian Chronicles, with Lafrasia being the fairy world, makes a lot more sense. So it's if you haven't caught on, it's kind of that type of fantasy story with fairy creatures and that sort of stuff. So good. It's been really good. So I'm really hung up on the story, and it unfortunately sucks because it's bi-weekly or monthly. The episodes are a lot further stretched out. So I'm sitting there and it's like, I want the next one. It's like, and you're left, and almost every episode has a cliffhanger point where you're like, that's it. Fucking no, I need more. And so, which is a good thing, but yeah, probably the two big, and again, I can't say I have a favorite right now. I don't have a favorite, but these are the two that I'm really, really like hung up on, and I'm really looking forward to listening. Every time they come up, I'm like, yes, there's a new Lafrasia, there's a new Less is Morgue. I look forward to those. They're awesome. So yeah, those are the two right now that are my big favorites. Because I'm indecisive as fuck. And less is more does this weird sort of shade of green. I have to say, what color is your favorite podcast? And it's probably because, what's the word? Kate, like Emily from Hate to Wait, and formerly of The Story Behind. I should say formerly of both, because both shows have pretty much pod faded out. But they have, was it synesthesia is the word, I believe, where they interpret their senses differently. So I believe they both actually see words as color or something, or like as, and stuff like that. It's kind of like you hear a sound, but you see a color kind of thing, or you like read a word and it is a color or a sound, and you experience different things not quite as you should necessarily. And so it's like a what color is your name kind of thing. And so that could entirely be what the question is. And sorry, Kate, my brain doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Or is it working? I don't know if that's working or malfunctioning. I don't know if you would necessarily describe it either way. But yeah, I don't know. The best I could tell you is what's the color of the podcast artwork. LaFresia is kind of purple and black and blue, and Les's Morgue is kind of zombie-ish. Okay, so Riley's a ghoul, so I guess it'd be rude to say zombie, but it's like ghouly, ghosty, greeny kind of vibe. You know what the color is. You know what that sort of shade of blue, green, bile, sort of rotted flesh color. All right, jumping back down to Heather. What advice would you give someone who doesn't have much time to podcast? Do a short show, or don't. If you want to make a podcast, you'll find the time. And it sounds really kind of harsh to say it that way, but if you really want to do it, just like anything else, if you really want to do it, you will find the time. You'll give up watching TV. You'll maybe spend a little less time with your family, which I don't necessarily recommend. But it is also quality time versus quantity. So if you're just, sitting around on the couch and everybody's sitting watching TV and you're just like, kids are all on their iPads or Game Boys or whatever the fuck, and you're all just sitting there watching TV and nobody's really paying attention to anybody and it doesn't really matter and it's not any sort of useful quality time. Yeah, excuse yourself. Go, depends on what type of show you're doing. Are you wanting to write a big scripted fucking something? Or are you want to do a news commentary show? Or you want to do like me and just bullshit for an hour? It really depends on what kind of show you want, what you want to get from it. Because it's not just what do you want from the show, but how much do you want to put into it? But if you don't have a lot of time, there's ways to work around it. There's actually a guy who literally records his podcast on his phone every day on his commute to work. And I think he really does a news commentary thing. I can't think of the name of the show at the moment. Sorry. But, the limitations on podcasting are minimal. Do you have a microphone? Do you have a device that can record? Do you have a place where you can put that recording of that audio so that other people can get it? That's all you need. Now, it's always better to have better microphones and better recording devices and a better website or place for people to acquire that sound, that audio file that you recorded. But at its core, that's what you need. So if maybe you're like me and you have to wait till your day off and day off of work and everybody is gone to bed and you stay up a little later to sit and record a podcast, and you're okay doing that because you want to sit down and record that podcast, do that. If you have to wake up extra early, I've done that. If you have to hey, I can't stay up late, but you know what? I can set my alarm clock for a little earlier and get up early and sit down and record a podcast. Or, hey, I can sit down at night and write a script if I need to write a script or whatever. It really is just kind of look at where your time is not being used to its the best quality. and maybe give up something that is of less quality use to you and use that. Like I said, you're all sitting around the TV and nobody's actually watching and it's not really quality time. Excuse yourself and go sit there and write a script or record an episode or, post episode links on Facebook or Twitter or whatever in your, you're passing while you're sitting in line at the grocery store or something. Do you still go to the grocery store? I don't. We order all our groceries and just have it picked up and put in the trunk for us. But that's a whole other thing. We were doing that way before pandemic. Yeah, it's really, again, it sounds harsh to say it, but it's really just kind of, if you want to do it, you'll find the time to do it. Even if you only have a few minutes a day to write up topics and notes. If you need to write something, almost every phone now has a notes app or something where you can just write notes on topics and ideas. And, if you have to sit there and write out a script and write an intro and write a thing, all the different parts, you can create so much for a podcast inside of a phone. Again, you can record straight into your phone if you need to. I don't recommend it, just from a audio snob doing this too damn long sort of brain, but you can do 99% of podcasting from a phone. So it's really a matter of getting creative with how you want to do it, knowing what you want to do, and find the time in, as they say, in the kind of side gig land, find the time in the margins. It's, do you have an extra 20 minutes here where you can sit and, if you want to do multiple segments, sit and record. If your gear is already set up and you just walk and go push record and do a thing, or you walking and talking and just recording. Because that's been done too, where you just, you're walking down the street and recording yourself as you're walking down the street. What's to say you can't do that? It's really, don't limit yourself to sounding like radio or sounding like you're on TV or these people who have these big $1,000-something studios. My entire assembly here probably cost me $200, and that's with me splurging on shit over several years. I spent $100 on 2 microphones, and realistically, I don't even think I have $200. I think I have $200 committed to my podcast equipment over the course of 6 years for everything. And that's counting replacing microphones several times as I upgraded. So yeah, you don't need a lot of money. And again, it's more than you need. Again, you probably have a phone. You probably have a headset that came with your phone, little earbuds or whatever. Those work. Do what you need to do. Find the time where you can find it. Go for a walk in the morning and talk about your morning routine. A podcast can be anything. And I've gone on about this because podcasting is so much of my life. Do you want to hear me expound on this on a YouTube video or something, or on TikTok? Shit. I have a TikTok profile. I haven't recorded a fucking thing. Mostly I got it on account of watching shit that my sisters and my sister-in-law would send me. It was just easier to do it through the app. I realize the app is full of spyware, but nowadays, what isn't? But maybe I should do that sort of shit. I don't know. Tell me what you want more from me. All right, let's see. Where was that one? Okay, that was from Heather. Next, okay, let me wrap up Heather's here. And what if they're struggling to connect with their why and get them the why that got them keen to start in the first place? And that is the biggest thing. When you're starting a podcast, the absolute most important thing, it's not the microphone, it's not the recording device, it's not where am I going to do it, when am I going to do it, it's why. Why are you creating a podcast? And I guess the biggest thing is, like, it says, if you're struggling to connect with why, your why probably wasn't very strong. Because if your why to create a podcast was strong enough for you to want to do it and really want to do it, you wouldn't question it. And again, I'm being kind of harsh because as a podcast editor and consultant, my brain goes there. And it's really one of those, my job as a consultant isn't to tell people what they want to hear. It's to tell them what they need to hear. and to be kind of tough love and to remind you of what it is that you like, remind you of your goals. If your goal is to make money and get rich, this is not the industry for you. This is the longest haul. It's a marathon, not a sprint metaphor you could ever go for. Very, 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 very few people who get into podcasting make a lot of money. And even fewer of those, if you're going to say like 1% of podcasters make any real money, and maybe like 1% of those, and I'm pulling these numbers completely out of my ass, will make enough money to live on. And that's directly from the podcast, not like other side stuff that happens to be like me. I make money as a podcast editor. I don't make anything from this show, so I don't consider that from the show. But I make money as a podcast editor. I'm in the business, but not making money from this podcast. So, and then maybe another 1% of people will actually get rich. And that's because they were probably celebrities in the first place. The very, 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 very few people will ever make like beyond livable wages, but get rich podcasting. It just doesn't really happen. That's not what you do in this industry. This is an entertainment business for people who want to entertain. Really. We're mostly those, man, it's my art, man. That's us. That's podcasting. But you have to know your why and you have to connect with your why. And it's hard for me because my brain to give and maybe I'll talk myself through it, a wide enough answer to how do you help someone reconnect with their why. But that is the biggest, most important thing, because it doesn't matter anything else, but you have to know your why and really like you have not necessarily connect, but you have to understand your why. You have to know what it is, why you're doing it, because if you don't know that, I mean, why are you doing it? And it's a really stupid way to phrase that. If you don't know why you're doing it, then why are you doing it? And sometimes it just takes, smacking somebody upside the head with that one. But, you have to assess. It's not just the why, but it's assessing, is the why good enough? And maybe she's asking, because I don't do follow-up questions with everybody, but, I'm kind of looking at it from the, maybe if you're struggling with you have your why, but you're having a hard time executing your why, then maybe you shouldn't do it. And again, gotta tell the hard truth is sometimes your why is more difficult to execute than you either have the ability to do or the time, or it's just going to be something that's so much work, it's outside of your scope of ability. Or some things are just too big. Some things are just too big to tackle. You're not proving Atlantis on your podcast. You're just not. Nobody's going to do it. Okay. So, if that's your goal, good luck with that. If that's your goal, but you're also probably pretty committed if you're willing to have such a lofty goal. But, it really is, it's trying to find the right words to how to put this, but your why is the most important thing. And if you're struggling with your why, you need to reassess your why. You either need to reassess your why or you need to assess your how you're going to get to your why. And again, if your why is money, take a hike, go start a YouTube channel. You'll have better luck. And there's even more of those. But you have to know why, and you have to be able to articulate what it is. And if your why, again, I go back to my original kind of point was, if your why isn't strong enough, then why are you doing it? If you're struggling with the why, it either means your why wasn't strong enough to begin with, or you've fallen out of your passion for it has fallen away and it's not worth doing now. And there's tons of people who've quit their podcast or stopped, didn't even follow through with it because they were really excited about it and they were really passionate about it. And as they started getting into it, they fell out of love with the subject matter and they're like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Then don't. That's fine. You can do that. Nobody's forcing you to do your podcast. It's all in your head. I'm at 284 podcast episodes, or God, over 300 episodes counting Mom and Dad Cuss that I've recorded because I want to, not for any other reason. Again, I don't make money here. I have a very small audience on both shows through the entire run of that one. I do this for me. I want to entertain you, but I do this for me. It is my own personal self-motivation that keeps me coming back week after week after week when I'm here. So that's my why. I do this for as much for me as I do to entertain you. So yeah, it's weird. You have to get really philosophical when you're talking about motivations for podcasting. It's funny. All right. Moving back down. Let's see. Allie from the Oddballs Facebook group. And Allie is one of those, I've mentioned her before. She's psycho. And I mean this in the absolute best way. She's super sweet. And she's a weirdo. And she had the fabulous idea. She found the show from when I was a guest on Millennial Pagan Podcast, and then had the complete, self-hating, I don't know why she wanted to put herself through this. She went back to episode 1 and listened to this show in its entirety. She listened to every single episode. She's crazy. That's insanity. That's all I can say. But she's awesome. And she is known in the group to share weird ass stories. She's also the one who recommended Box of Oddities podcast to me and got me hooked on that one. And she's also a member of I'm blanking the name, the Facebook group for the Box of Oddities, but she's in there too. And so she'll share weird shit from there too. But she'll share weird news stories and stuff that was very bullshit of the newsworthy in the Oddballs group. But all that about her bio or whatever. Hallie asks, what's one thing you wish you'd done that you now are unable to do? I wish I could have ridden my motorcycles in Arizona. I would have loved to go on a long trip, take a motorcycle trip to Sedona, or even back to Clifton or Morenci, where I grew up. Arizona is a gorgeous state, and I've said this before, especially northern Arizona is beautiful. Then the forests up there and the mountains are great. And to do something like that and go on a motorcycle ride, 4, 5, 6 hour ride upstate would be great. Maybe go up to the Grand Canyon on motorcycles. Tons of people do it. So loaded with motorcycles up there when you go up to the Grand Canyon. But I no longer have a motorcycle, and I do not foresee any time in my future where I will be able to get another one. Theoretically it's possible, but it's not something I foresee happening anytime in the future. Waking up without pain, just because I have back problems and I'm old. Mentioned before, I have scoliosis. It's mild, but I have scoliosis. I've got, I'm very Frankenstein-y. At one point I discovered I had kidney stone, and when they were doing tests for kidney stones, they found out that a bunch of my organs are missized and mismatched, and I've only got one kidney, and things like that. My head is oversized, or proportionately too large for my body. Legs and arms are disproportionate to the rest of my body. Biologically and medically speaking, there's nothing wrong with me. My shit works. My organs are just not all the right size for my body. It's weird. So weird medical things tend to happen to me. I don't know. I don't know if something I wish I'd done. I'm not a regret person so much. Well, I do. There's one thing I wish, I wish I'd done, but it's not so much a unable to do. It's I should have done it earlier, but it was more of a relationship thing. It was a breaking off a relationship earlier than I did. But that's, that relationship is over and done and gone and been gone for well over a decade now that I've been married for going on. No, we just had our anniversary, 12 years. So that's kind of the only thing. I don't hold on to a lot of regrets. I'm not a live in the past kind of person. And so it's hard for me to say, something I wish I'd done. Not be stupid. That's it. I've done a lot of stupid shit. And so that's kind of it. I realize some of my answers are kind of boring, and because I'm kind of a boring guy, I'm surprised I've managed to do this show talking about myself basically for 200 episodes because I'm fucking boring if you hadn't noticed. But I'm so I'm boring for a not so normal, and I don't know. I don't know how I can be as weird as I am and still as boring as I am. It's really complicated. I'm a complicated person, man. But we have come to the end. The last question. Okay. I'll say this. Kate had one more, and I just have no clue how the fuck I do it. She says, replace 3 favorite songs with the words odd, dad, and out. And I'm just going to say I'm not that creative. I don't know how I'd do that. I would require weeks and weeks and weeks of planning and searching and figuring this fuck out. I'm better left to have somebody else do it for me. If anybody else wants to tackle that one. Yeah, replacing your 3 favorite songs with the words odd, dad, and out. We've already established I have a hard time deciding my favorite anything. So trying to figure out what my 3 favorite songs are and then replace words, yeah, I'm fucked. So anybody else wants to tackle that, go for it. Take your pick, anybody. That'd be fun. It'd be fun to see what you come up with if you want to do it. But we're going to wrap up with one more question from Superfan Tori. Are your pets named before you meet them, or do you need to get to know them first? Now, I will say, we are very much we get the vibe for an animal and determine their name from that. At the same time, most of our animals came to us with names, and we didn't feel right changing them. We'll give a rundown of all the animals we've had, which I realize we're over an hour now, and this is going to take a bit, but when we first got married and when we first moved out to Arizona, we had our cat Fluffy. We still have, and she's actually now 13, I believe. She's fucking old. Fluffy was a gift from my brother and sister-in-law. It was a cat they had. She didn't get along with their other cat, and so they had to get rid of her. We'd just gotten married. Except we just had Charlie, I believe. And so we were like, hey, you guys want a cat? We took the cat. Her name was already Fluffy. We didn't feel like changing it as much as we hated the fucking name Fluffy for a cat because it's stupid to name your cat Fluffy because everybody's had a fucking cat named Fluffy. But she already knew that was her name, and there wasn't too much we could do about that. We tried to just call her other shit. It just didn't stick. She's still Fluffy just cuz. It just happened. When we moved out here, my sister had her Dalmatian, Emmett. If you were listening for a while, you knew we had Emmett. She had named him after Emmett Smith because my sister's a loser and she's a Cowboys fan. Love you, sis. And so Emmett was named after Emmett Smith. Circumstances happened, whereas Emmett became our dog. He'd been Emmett for his entire life. He was an old dog. We weren't changing his name. We did our dog, though, that we got before we got Emmett was our boxer Cheyenne. And Cheyenne was it was one of those things where we received her as a baby puppy as a gift, which is why my wife says I couldn't tell her no, she couldn't have a dog because it was a gift. But it was one of those where her name was actually a name we had picked out for a daughter. We had the name Cheyenne picked out. This was going to be our daughter. And as we were sitting there throwing names around for a boxer puppy, and we're just, sitting there playing with her, and we don't know what her name is yet. And like I said, we spent time with her, and we settled on Cheyenne, and we realized we were giving her our daughter's name. And for all intents and purposes, she's the only daughter we've ever had. We've got all boys, and all of the other animals have been animals. But Cheyenne was our baby girl. And so she got our daughter's name. And so, not to dig up emotions, but when we lost her, it hurt a lot. That was a really rough time that my wife still, to this day, and it's been several years, has a hard time getting past that anniversary. Whew, okay. Going on, we had fish. We had a lot of fish. Most of them came from my sister. They all had names. It was Bubbles, Buttercup, and Neo. And why she didn't just no, it wasn't Neo. It was Akon. Why am I saying Neo? Thinking of another sort of rapper guy. It was Akon because it was a convict striped cichlid. And so, yeah, he looked like he had prison stripes. And Akon. And the other two, of course, they were Powerpuff Girls. And I forget the exact story, but the fish had names. And there was an algae eater who was Bolt, I believe. And no, it was Spot or Bolt. And we got another algae eater that we thusly named the other. I think hers was Spot. And we had, because it was like spotted and speckled, and we named our other one Bolt because we needed another dog name. And so that was it. Because we're dumb and punny. Fish, not as committed to them. My wife's cat, Toby, who we collected as a stray who was hanging around our house. And we just kind of were like, hey, he's here every day. If he comes back this next day, he was like, here, like came by the house like every day for like a week. And we're like, okay, if he stops and stays and wants to come inside, we'll bring him inside. We'll get him fixed. And the day we brought him in, we're like, okay, well, what are we going to call him? And we're like, my wife was at work. I was at home, and, he was in the house, but we hadn't really settled on anything. It was hey, we brought him in this morning. She went to work. We were like, whatever. And I texted her in the middle of the day and just said, his name is Toby. And she's like, I was just about to call you and tell you the same thing. So without argument, his name was Toby. Whether he told us his name was Toby or not, or we just, synchronicity. But he's Toby, and he's always been Toby, and he's always responded to Toby from day one. And so, yeah, he was, I just as much as I feel like, he's somewhere in there, got the feeling like he told us his name was Toby, because shit, But realistically, after him, we haven't named any other animals. So if you've noticed, most of our animals came with names. We only named Toby, technically named Toby and Cheyenne, and Toby's kind of questionable. Because most of our animals have been hand-me-downs. Most of them have come from my sister. Our turtle, Shelby, was from my sister. Of course, taking on Emmett, and now Jasper and Mystic both had those names when we got them because they've all been adopted from other homes. Jasper was my sister's dog, like Emmett, and he came with that name. He was Jasper. That's what he was raised as. He knows that name, and it'd be wrong. He knew us with us knowing that name because he was, he came into the family later. And Mystic, when we adopted her last year, that was her name. She's old enough to know her name and respond to it, and I'm not about to go changing her name. Although we do, probably about half the time, just call her Missy. And so if we had to say we changed her name, we went from being Mystic to calling her Missy, short for Mystic, even though it's a pretty much the exact same length, whatever. But yeah, that's, that's kind of it. Other than calling her Brat, we don't, we haven't had the opportunity to name most of our animals because most of them have come with names already. And again, like I said, I don't feel right changing an animal's name once they're established. If we'd had the dog, it's a brand new puppy and they didn't have a name yet, and we named them, but it didn't quite feel right. Because I'm all about a name feeling right. And I had this argument when we were naming the kids. And I was like, yeah, you've got this name picked out, but what if the kid is born and that name doesn't fit? And it's like, it's just a name. You say that. But if your name was Rhonda, you would feel differently. And not necessarily you don't feel like a Rhonda, but like you would be a different person if you were Rhonda. But if I called you Rhonda, I'm not Rhonda. That's not who I am. It's what's in a name. Well, somewhat what's in a name, somewhat like you did the same as you don't look like a Steve. You don't look like a Jeremiah. You don't look like a Rhonda. You don't look like a Rebecca. It's the same thing with, kids having nicknames. Our son's name is Alexander. He's not an Alex. He just isn't. You look at him, he's not Alex. He'll never, I'm sure somewhere in middle school or high school, people are going to start calling him Alex, just like my little brother, Christopher. We never called him Christopher, ever. He didn't start getting called Christopher until almost high school. Well, they'd call him Christopher. We didn't call him Chris. We didn't call him Chris. Only person that called him Chris was my stepdad. And then when he went to live with my mom and stepdad, then people started calling him Chris. I still will not, to this day, call him Chris. I'll call him Christopher. And I'll for the sake of, he had a kitty nickname when we were little, I'll avoid using that. But he's Christopher. I won't call him Chris. My brother-in-law is also named Chris. And I will only call him Chris. He's Chris. My brother is Christopher. My brother-in-law is Chris. And I realize this also helps with confusion and me in conversation, but I can't look at my own brother and call him Chris. It just doesn't feel right. My brother-in-law, I do. Like, no, that's Chris. Which also kind of helps in the case of, like my son is Charlie. He's named after my father-in-law. I would never call my father-in-law Charlie. He's Chuck. Both of them they're both Charles, but Charlie is Charlie, and he looks like a Charlie, and he feels like a Charlie. I could never ever consider calling him Chuck or Chucky or anything resembling that. But my father-in-law is Chuck. A name is a name, but a name has a certain feeling for a person or an animal or whatever. So again, big, long, drawn-out response for we didn't name all of our animals, but when we did, it had to feel right. Any of these questions could have been answered so much shorter than I did, but that wouldn't be my style now, would it? But thank you. Thank you, everybody, especially to Heather and Kate and Coach Raven and Allie and Superfan Tori for all of your questions. And yes, you're going to remain Superfan Tori. Deal with it. And I need to reach out to all of you guys and get some addresses so I can send you guys some stickers. I owe Coach Raven stickers because she is now a supporter on Patreon and is awesome. And so I owe Coach Raven some stickers, and I owe all of you a keychain, at least one. I have to see how many I have left. But how many? I got to send out some keychains because you guys are awesome and you did the whole thing and sent me questions. So y'all are badass. Oh, man. 200 episodes. Holy shit. Can you believe I did 200 episodes? I can barely believe I did 200 episodes. And I did like 200, I did almost 300. And I don't think about that I've done 200 episodes. It's been kind of crazy. Only like almost 6 years, June or July. I always forget if it's June or July, but either way, fuck. It must be July. It's somewhere in July. 6 years. Son of a bitch. All the adventures we've had across these last 200 episodes in nearly 6 years. You've seen one of my entire kids grow up. We're going to rewind. Episode 3 was the night my youngest child was born. He's now about to graduate from kindergarten. You have been here with me through all of that. Holy shit. 200 episodes and the entire life of my fourth child. You have experienced me losing multiple pets, moving at least twice. multiple vacations, a lot of personal ups and downs and health scares and health issues and illnesses and cracked ribs and wow. Looking back at all the shit in the last 200 episodes, and it's just crazy to think I could have never thought 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, whatever, that I'd still be doing this. 200 episodes later, almost 6 years later, with all this shit and people who care enough to ask me shit and ask me questions about me and about the podcast, about whatever the fuck, for me to do this show. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. You guys are so awesome. You have no idea. Like, it's like, I don't even know. I don't even have the words to thank you for what it means to me that you're there. That 200 episodes later, did you still care enough to ask me questions about whatever the hell bullshit? And I totally open it up. Give me bullshit questions, please. But thank you. Because you're awesome. I mean, I don't have any other way to say it. There are better words to say it than awesome. I use it entirely too often. But it baffles me that anybody listens to my bullshit. And as I said it before, I seriously doubt there are going to be over 100 people who are really interested enough in my bullshit to listen to me every day or week or whatever. But you do. You are listening right now. Maybe, unless you shut this off and aren't listening to this, in which case I'm just drilling this into your brains. I don't know why I did that. But thank you. I realize I've said it like a bunch of times, but it's just the realization of episode 200, the realization that I've come this far. The vast, vast majority of podcasters do not make it this far. Most of them don't make it to 100. The running kind of agreement is once you've hit episode 100, you're committed. At 100, you're a serious podcaster and you've committed to doing this thing. I'm at 200. And yeah, there are guys out there who are 500, and Kate's over 300 because she's a fucking psycho and does 4 or 5 episodes a week and records all the fucking time. Did I mention she's a psycho? She's done like 300 plus episodes in like a year and a half or some bullshit because she's a fucking psycho. But it's amazing to me that I've done this. 100 seemed like a lot 100 episodes ago. That was like 3 years. 200 is just, what the fuck? I've done 200 main episodes of this show? What the fuck am I doing? That's at least, we're talking about approaching 200 hours, because you take the short episodes in the beginning and you take the average being probably around an hour and the long ones, and I'll throw it all together and spin it around and do the hokey pokey. And it's probably averages out to an hour to 200 hours of podcast listening to my ass. What the fuck? Seriously, Allie, how did you listen to all this bullshit? And going by the references to National Podcast Post Month and my mac and cheese recipe, how the fuck did you do this, Tori? I barely can listen back to myself at this point. That's not true. I listen back to myself all the time now. But I've been listening back to my old episodes and cringing like hell at how bad shit sounds. I really think about going back and remixing some of those so they don't sound like ass. I don't know. It's a thought. But yeah. Man, I'm going to stop because I'm just sitting here like vamping about holy fuck 200. That's just wow for me that I've done this and that you guys care. That anybody cares that I've made it. I've done 200 episodes and you guys actually give a shit. That's what's amazing to me. So thank you again for giving a shit and sticking around through episode 200. Motherfuckers. Y'all are some crazy ass bitches. So, from me I've said thank you a million times. I love you guys. You're the best. Reach out to me. Share shit with your friends. Like I said, I think my goal for the next 100 episodes is maybe have 100 listeners. Fuck. Have 100 or have 200, whatever. Really double my numbers. I want to double what I get right now. That'd be great. It took me a long time to do that before, and then, drop offs. That'd be great, but I can't do it without your help. So if you really enjoy the show and you think you know somebody who would enjoy it too, share it with their social media, steal their phone, subscribe to my show, and just give it back to them and say, trust me, this guy's a weirdo. He tells shit like it's real, man. He tells it like it is, and you don't know if he's going to be talking about, squash or shaving his dog, or I don't know, man. Who knows? I'm not going to shave my dog. Fuck, it's a hard enough job brushing. But okay, enough rambling. I got tons of stories coming up next week. Check the YouTube video. I got to make that link for you to go on dadoutpodcast.com/YouTube so you can check out my gardening videos. If you have any ideas for stuff you want me to do for that channel, I really think I'm just going to wipe all of the podcast episodes from it and do vloggy style, maybe gardening, maybe personal rants, maybe cooking. I don't know. If you want to see me do that shit, let me know. Tell me what you want me to do. Give me ideas what you want me to do on the... Wow, can I speak? Tell me what you want to see me do for videos and stuff for the YouTube channel. It'd be fun. Just something extra to do for the show, I think. Yeah, more stuff to do is more. Because I have time for this. I'm going to do more shit too. Podcast recommendations. All the shit, hit me up. All the social medias at Odd Dad Out. Show, voicemail, 516-636-7631. And until next week, Oddballs, I've got so much to share with you because I've been in the garden and we did movies and we did stuff. I gotta tell you, for the 200th time, thank you and good night.